Welcome to the deep dive. We unpack your sources, get you the essential insights. Today, it's a critical reconnaissance briefing. We're looking at a recent, really expansive public conversation from a popular podcast. It gives a unique view on the challenges America's facing right now. And the core insight, it's this deep paradox. Technology leaps forward, productivity is up, but while most Americans actually feel worse off.
Yeah, this deep dive feels particularly relevant. It distills the senator's viewpoint on what they see as a really pivotal moment, a turning point, maybe. We'll examine the core issues they're highlighting, explore some, pretty thought-provoking solutions, and focus on how concentrated wealth and political influence are, well, according to the source, actively making that gap wider.
Okay, so the source, it starts pretty starkly. This senator claims America faces more serious crises than ever, especially around wealth and power. And get this statistic. They cite one individual, Elon Musk, owning more wealth than the bottom 52% of American families combined. It's quite something. And then 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, often without even $1,000 saved.
It's a huge contrast, isn't it? And it's not just numbers. It's about the real-world impact, the day-to-day struggle. Can you afford rent? Healthcare? What if your car breaks down? Especially on a federal minimum wage stuck at $7.25 an hour. Now, our source traces this back to, quote, decades-old attacks on the working class and things like horrific trade agreements, and mentioned NAFTA specifically, even describing, workers in Mexico ending up in cardboard boxes. And the concentration of ownership is fascinating here. Just 3 Wall Street firms, BlackRock being one, are major stockholders in like 95% of American corporations.
Wow, 95%. That's a lot of influence in a few hands. So how does the source link this concentration, this wealth, directly to our democracy?
Exactly. That's the next critical point. The Citizens United Supreme Court decision comes up. The source argues it fundamentally changed the game, gave billionaires, effectively, a constitutional right to pour millions into elections. Unlimited spending, really. They give examples.
Yeah.
One individual spending $270 million trying to elect a president. Then on the other side, different billionaires spending $1.5 billion on another campaign.
So huge money flowing in.
Right. And it raises this question. What happens when politicians, as the source puts it, feel they can't vote their conscience, maybe on something like military aid, because they fear a primary challenge funded by these powerful super PACs, these independent groups with, well, unlimited money? The argument is the system effectively, quote, rejects the will of the American people.
And then you layer technology on top of this. You've got this huge explosion in technology, worker productivity way up over the last, 50-odd years. But the source points out real wages, flat or even lower. It's that paradox again. Most people surveyed feel worse off than maybe 40 years ago, despite all the tech.
Yeah, and the source connects this to other issues, too, like a growing epidemic of loneliness, rising mental illness, amplified potentially by technology, by social media overuse, especially impacting young people. They even mention AI companies with ads saying things like, don't hire humans, which is pretty blunt.
So if automation might replace millions of jobs, truck drivers, yes, but also white-collar work. What happens then?
That's the big question, isn't it? How do people find purpose? Meaning, if traditional work disappears, the source calls it the trillion-dollar question. What do humans do? There's even a warning against falling in love with your AI creature.
Yeah.
But they also suggest radical solutions. Technology should benefit everyone, not just, a handful of CEOs.
Okay, so what kind of solutions are floated? Anything concrete?
Well, they point to models like Norway, their massive wealth fund, built from public resources like oil. That fund helps pay for universal health care, free education, affordable housing. The argument follows. If we love America, why not guarantee health care and education as human rights, like we do with, say, public fire departments?
That's a powerful analogy. What else?
Ideas like a 4-day, 32-hour work week are mentioned, something the UAW has pushed for. And tackling systemic issues head-on, like the food industry, allegedly engineering addictive products. They draw a parallel there to the tobacco industry and its history of, well, misleading the public about health risks.
Interesting comparison.
Yeah, and what's really intriguing is the senator's belief, despite all the political division we see, that fundamentally Americans actually share a lot of common ground on these big issues. Wanting healthier people, better education, safer communities. The source suggests the political fighting, the exploiting of divisions, often hides this shared humanity.
So we've really dug into some colossal challenges today. Economic disparity, political influence, technology's impact on our lives, our purpose.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
this whole conversation, it really forces us to confront a fundamental question, doesn't it? In a world that often feels so divided, how can you, the listener, help bridge that gap? How can you focus on the common humanity, the shared goals we might need to tackle these huge challenges?